I welcome you all for the discussion on Gang of Four structural patterns. Previously, we have seen introduction to patterns as well as we have seen the creational patterns. Before we can begin, I wish to remind you few things. One is it is the architecture which comes first, then the design, and then the programming stuff. So therefore, architectural patterns, they are suggesting about overall architecture of the system. So there you can use the architectural styles. Then you are been picking up the uh, design patterns to structure the subsystems. Now the word subsystems is very important for us. And the third thing is the idioms, that is the coding patterns that we have seen. Today we will be focusing on the structural patterns. So let's move ahead with the creational pattern summary. We have seen abstract factory, builder, factory method, prototype and singleton. Now one of the things that was important was the design patterns were either belonging to the class creational or object creational. The class creational means that we are using the principle of inheritance, whereas in case of object creational, you use the principle of delegation. So how to remember the creational pattern as an abstract name, that is FB, FPS, AB, FPS, that is the total of 23 patterns. We will try to remember. Abstracted word is AB, FPS, right? We will not use singleton as far as possible. So next is the structural patterns. Now why to use the structural pattern is to have the composition especially or decomposition of the subsystems. That is to add details to the design structure. We are picking up the architectural style which has been indicated in architectural patterns. We will look into the subsystems. We will pick up the subsystems and then apply these structural patterns, that is adapter, bridge, composite, decorator, packet, flyweight and proxy. The abstract word for this is ABCD F square P. ABCD F square P. Adapter, why to use adapter is to convert the interface of an object or a class into another interface that the client expects. Adapter lets the classes work together that couldn't otherwise because of incompatible interfaces. So the focus of adapters is to have the compatibilities set for the interfaces so that two classes can communicate and that the client expects. Bridge, it's an indicator of decoupling an abstraction from its implementation. So bridge, usually it has got source and destination. So the same kind of an principle will retain. Composite we have already seen in the composition hierarchy, that is whole part relationship shown by a filled diamond box in UML class diagrams. Decorator, which adds up outer scheme, that is attach additional responsibilities to an object dynamically, and decorators provides a flexible alternative to subclassing. While doing the subclassing, you should not go beyond the level 3. That is an indicator of bad structuring. Now, Packard is being used as an unified interface to set of interfaces in the subsystem. So, subsystem hierarchies, which are looking like a mesh, can be reorganized, restructured into the lanes or into the branches, which are interface specific. Private, they are large number of fine-grained objects which can come and go in the memory. Okay, so usually flyweights are being used whenever we are using middleware. Proxies, they provide surrogate or placeholder for another object. So you are creating the object pool for holding something, someplace for the object to occur. Now such things should be created. Why so? These things should be created. Why so? Proxies. So as to have extra level of indirection to support distributed control or intelligent access. So the short forms have been mentioned in the next list, that is impedance match a legacy component, decoupling interface from implementation, that is mechanism versus the method, that is moving beyond the encapsulation to insulation. Now insulation adds up to the protection of the object. Composite, recursive composition by coupling aggregate class. Decorator, recursive wrapping that supports client-specified incremental embellishment. Facade is a simple wrapper to a complicated subsystem. A mesh-like hierarchy is being organized into specific branches. Pivots, they may have a lot of little objects, thin objects, usually they are being called as. So the architectural styles which uses it is the broker architectural style, the middlewares, the entire architecture, and proxies. Usually in networking, you are having the proxies. So how to remember the keyword for this is ABCD F square P. Now again going back to creational, there were been 5 ABFPS, that is the abstract factory, then builder, then factory method, then prototype, and then singleton. Here ABCD F square P means adapter, bridge, composite, decorator, facade, plywood, and proxy. So 5 plus 7, this comes out to be 12. Still 11 are remaining. So now you just remember the short form CMOS TV. CMOS TV. Now OTV is not squared. So it should be C square M square O S square PV. So let us begin with the double C, chain of responsibility, command, interpreter, iterator, observer, strategy, state, template, and visitor. And this brings up the total up to 11. So 12 plus 11, it comes up to be 23. So remembering the names is not a great thing. Just have a look at this. ABFPS, ABCD F square P, CMOS TV, where OTV is used for single time. So you will find this thing again the next slide. Okay, chain of responsibility, command, interpreter, iterator, mediator, memento, observer, state, strategy, and template, method, and visitor. So, therefore, a short summary suggests about the behavioral pattern, that is chain of responsibility is OO linked list. It's a chain. Chain means it is coming in the form of a list. So, it could be done with a pipeline. You have studied pipe and filter. Okay, the pipes are being used for communication purpose. They serve as communication channels, where filters are having the processing parts. Command, they have got the O callback, and they promote the method invocation for full object status. Interpreter, you all know, iterator for n number of times. You have the iteration of algorithms. Okay, those work around on data structures, that is decoupling algorithms and the data structures. Mediator, as the name suggests, they form many to many relationships amongst the peer. Memento, that is about the externalization of an object's state to an opaque, that is shapeless object. Observer, decoupling the independent sender from the dependent receiver. State strategy. Now strategy deals with the algorithm, right? It deals with the algorithm, yeah, and it is the interface which takes up this particular algorithm to the derived class. Template method, which indicate common algorithms and the placeholders. We have used the templates, isn't it, in OO programming. Then visitor, that is open for extension. So let us go now with the summary. What is the hotspot? Abstract factory, host platforms. Builder, they create aggregates element. Factory method, subclass of the object that is created. Prototype, class of object that is being created, that is a clone. And singleton, that is the sole instance of a class. You can see the mnemonic also for better understanding. In other case, that is structural pattern, just see to it, adapter, which works as an interface of an object. Bridge, implementation of the object. Composite, structure of aggregate element. Decorator, responsibilities of an object. Packard is interface of subsystem, that is branching decisions are being taken. Flyweight, they are being little objects, okay, so they consume very low scale kind of space in the memory. Proxies for location or access of control. So this was the summary. Now about the behavioral, uh, just see to it that chain of responsibility, selection of request receiver. I will take up one or two. Okay, mediator, interaction between peer objects on common grounds, and strategy, plug compatible algorithms. That is, choice of algorithms are being indicated through strategy, just like switch case. Yeah, and in template, it indicates constant algorithm, that is replaceable steps could be there, the steps can be rearranged, managed, okay, and visitor, as the name suggests, that is operations on the aggregate elements are being done. So how the patterns are being organized, there is a three colors that are being used. Yeah, the sluggish yellow color, okay, is being the indicator of the creational, and on the extreme right there is a very light blue color, and a little bit of shading has been there to that color with the behavioral pattern. So it is been known as sacred elements of faith, that is having the holy origins, right, and the holy structures, right? Holy origins, holy structures, holy behaviors. So three dimensions are been there: origins, structures, and behaviors. So as I have told you, how to remember them? This is very similar to the periodic table that we have learned in chemistry. Yeah, I always said that software is an equivalence, having equivalence to chemistry. So left hand side is about origins, A, B, F, P, S, right? The structures A, B, C, D, F square, P, and for the behaviors, CMOS, TV, right? The next thing is structural patterns. They are concerned about how the classes and objects are composed. Okay. So you work around the interfaces as well, okay, that are been communicating with each other. So now let us go about the very short and concise kind of a definition again with the structural patterns. Adapters, they are the interface converters. Bridge, decoupling the abstraction from its implementation. These are the short forms. composition of object is been done by composite. Decorator attach an additional responsibility. In case of decorator, attach additional responsibility dynamically, not statically. It is not predefined. Depends on the situations and the conditions and the events. Facade provide unified interface to a system. Okay, repeatedly I am saying subsystems. Okay, for one system there could be multiple facades. Okay, which that can be used, and there could be multiple flyweights or little objects. Okay, which are being fine grained. Proxies they provide surrogate for another object to control the axis. Let's move ahead to the adapter pattern. What it does. They are 7 in number structural patterns, right? 7 in number. Again to remember them, A, B, C, D, F square, P, right? The P is standing for proxy, right? Intent. We should read the intent first up. It is class as well as object structural. Means it permits both the things, that is inheritance and delegation. Converts the interface of a class into another interface that the client expects. Adapter lets classes work together. Okay, this we have seen. So it acts up as a toolkit only. Yeah. So when to use the adapter pattern? When you want to use existing class, but its interface does not match the one you need. In case of object adapter, you have several existing subclasses, but their interfaces are not adaptable or compatible. So an object adapter can adapt, due to which it works on the delegation principle. So it works on the interface of the parent class. Through the parent class, the object adapter makes the another object access the children, right? So a class adapter and an object adapter. In case of class adapter, these two categories are very important. It adapts adapted to the target by committing a concrete adapter class. It works on inheritance principle. Okay, so abstract and concrete classes will be there. As a consequence, the class adapter won't work when we want to adapt a class and all of its subclasses. Okay, so it lets the adapter override some of the adaptive behavior. Okay, so this is the story with the class adapter. With an object adapter, lets a single adapter work with many adapters. So therefore, one parent will allow the children to communicate with multiple target audiences, right? And it makes it harder to override the adaptive behavior. So just see to it, which is the thing that is overriding the adaptive behavior. Yeah, class adapters, they override some of the adaptive behavior. Fullest level overriding is not permissible, right? So let us have a look at this. Okay, how it does. Yeah. So this is the theory. Let us go to the example. Yeah. The drawing editor has got shape. Shape could be a line or text shape, and you can have your own kind of an shape, that is line or text shape, through the text view. Now, what happens is with the class adapter and what happens is with the object adapter. Okay, just have a look at these diagrams. Now, adapter has got the adaptive. You look at the the generalization sign. It is heading towards the adaptive, towards the target, right? So adapter here controls what adaptive and target. So the client communicates with the target, not directly with the adaptive. Through the adapter, some of the properties from the adapters, are being inherited with the adaptees, isn't it? And in case of object adapter, you can see that the adapter now is having a direct communication with the adaptive to override. some of the behavior, that is specific requests could be handled, right? And then the target now is holding the uh, generalization from the adapter. So differentiating these two, have a look again. In the first case, class adapter uses multiple inheritance. Okay, multiple inheritance. That's why I was indicating to you where the triangles is been heading around. It's heading around on target and adaptee. So target and adaptee, from these two, adapter will inherit the properties, right? Just see to it. This is an example of multiple inheritance. Usually in the generalization hierarchy, what do we do? Generalization, it is bottom up. Yeah. Now, the adaptee and the target, from there, the adapter has been taking up the interface. Okay, it forms one interface. Through that interface, the request comes up through the target. Yeah, and adapter latches up to the adaptee. So the specific request for non-compatibility can be completed by the adapter. In the another case, the object adapter relies on composition. Okay, composition of what? Adaptee and target. Okay, here there is no multiple inheritance. Only the client is required to communicate to the target, and now through the delegation, I repeat again, through the delegation, the adaptee can access the mechanism. So that is about the adapter. Now, how much adapting does the adapter do? Yeah, it depends on what? How similar the target interface is to adaptees. If very much dissimilarities are been there, then there will be an extensive work that is required to be done by the adapters. Pluggable adapters, they can be used to have many classes communication to a single class through a single adapter, right? Likewise, a single adapter works well with multiple kind of handsets. Okay, you can rank it as pluggable adapter, right? Using the two-way adapters to provide the transparency. The two-way adapters can provide transparency. Transparency between what? The adaptee interface and the client. Adaptee interface and the client. Right. So two-way. What was the demand and how to fulfill it. Right. Moving next, bridge pattern. We have covered adapter now. Now let us move to bridge. We have to know the source and destination. That is what is the prerequisite for the bridge. It is bidirectional in nature. Again, to suggest you. Now let us read the intent, decouple the abstraction from its implementation. Okay, it should not go theoretical, right? Well, inheritance helps the abstraction can have multiple possible implementation, but it is sometimes not flexible enough. So the rigid mechanisms could be passed up. Okay, so the bridge pattern puts an abstraction and implementation in a separate class hierarchy. So there is an example, right, for the bridge. Let us go around. So this is called as handle body idiom. Idiom is the terminology that we use for coding patterns. Okay. So the focus of handle body is on sharing. So there are two classes as you can see. Yeah. But before we can see the two classes, just see the idiom. It allows decomposition of complex abstraction into smaller manageable classes, right? So what is being abstracted, how this decomposition works, it is about reframing the hierarchies, abstraction to hierarchy, right? Reframing the hierarchies, allowing the sharing of a single resource by multiple objects. Okay, so just see to it now the diagram. Client communicates with the body class. How it communicates? It communicates through the handle class, that is outer skin class, that is visible, right? And fields requests and dispatches them to body, presents intuitive and uniform interface so that the client can communicate with the body. Now body class is the inner class where the implementation details are buried. So application intelligence resides here. So that part is not visible to the client. Likewise, services are being visible to the client and responsibilities are not. In that particular kind of an order, a skin class makes available the services but not the responsibilities. So the visibilities here are plus visibilities, right? That is public. So outer skin, isn't it, through which the handles class works, it makes the client work with the body class, right? So the example is that client, now this is working around with the object structural. It means that delegation principle is been coming around. Client tries to communicate with the abstraction. Abstraction has got refined abstractions. Abstractions A, B, C, D. This kind of a decomposition has been happening due to the hierarchical reformation. Yeah, and abstraction has got the implementer. Now the abstraction itself is an abstract class. So you need through the implementer, the concrete implementer A and B. Like that you can have C, D also, right? So this is sometimes known as proliferation of classes. This is sometimes known as proliferation of classes. So to repeat again, client tries to access abstraction, but the abstraction is separated from implementation. It has been decoupled. How it has been decoupled? Firstly, with the help of granularity that we add to the abstractions through rearrangement, through refragmentation. So, abstractions, they behave like an abstract class. You need concrete classes to see the instances, to see the objects. So you should have the implementer, now which is been separated from abstraction. So the bridge has been formed between abstraction and the implementer. Now who is the handle class here? Abstraction. Where is the body? Is the with the implementer. So it has got the concrete implementer A, B like that. You can have CD also. Those are been inherited from the implementer. So now here you can see that there are two distinct hierarchies. I will not explain the example of window now. Bridge interconnects two hierarchies. Okay, you can see goal, objectives, and processes. Right, two hierarchies can be interconnected together with the help of bridge. Now here one thing that you should note that it is level based. I mean here if the parent class knows, the parent class on the another side knows means what? The handle classes are able to communicate between themselves. Now there is no bridge formed directly between these two and these two and these two and these two. No direct kind of communication has been there. It is through the parents, right? Just try to understand this. So this is another kind of an example. Window is an abstraction. It is an abstract class. Its implementation can have the concrete objects. Okay, yeah, and you can have specialized kind of stuff. Okay, the abstraction is been decomposed into several units so that you can have either line drawing or you can work out with the string. So bridge, I hope so. This is another example and the another way, right? Windowing example. cell and cell implementation, right? Another example, logical cell and physical cell, right? This becomes the abstract class, right? This is the abstraction has to be broken into smaller manageable pieces, that is logical cell and physical cell. The cell implementation indicates implementation of the cell. So this is the abstract class, and then you can have the implementation rated into all of the concrete implementers of the cell. That is behavior, netlist, schematic, mask layout, and so on. And you can have process and processor. This is the most simple kind of an example. That is OS simulator example. A process can be decomposed into user level process or system level process. And for process, you can have processor as its implementation. The processor can have the categories likewise power PC, Spark, Alpha, PA-RISC, okay, and whatnot, okay. Pentium, then the current rate of Intel versions. Yeah. Now, bridge we have discussed, right? So this is example of employee and employer. Yeah. Use bridge patterns when multiple inheritance is good. Greater power in specifying the classes, but decreased opportunity for reuse because you are working around with the two things. One is the loss of conceptual simplicity, and another one is extended implementation situation. So there is a trick now in using bridge, right? So the second pattern has been covered. Now here you can see that this kind of a structure represents the employee. Employee could be hourly employee, yeah, or salaried or exempt employee. So hourly vested employee, hourly unvested, salary vested, and so on. So the pension status is a discriminator, and pay status can be a discriminator, which separate out or which does the categorization for these three categories, right? So this is nested generalization, but only three levels are there here. Okay, I was commenting that don't go beyond the three levels. Okay, repeatedly. Okay, because that will contaminate the things, and you will be leading to activities. Okay, afterwards. We know the hierarchy: goal, objective, processes, and what is the process? Set of activities performed to attain a specific goal or objective. So now another solution is that solution to single inheritance or delegation. It allows runtime changes. So employee and employee pension. Employee pension is the implementation of employee. And these three categories are indicating the bifurcation of the hierarchies, okay, for the abstraction for employee, and employee pension for vested and unvested. Okay, this is what is about the pension status. You can have other things also in consideration here. So the bridge has been formed between the abstraction and its implementation. Decoupling happens here. So let us go around with the proxy pattern. Proxy acts as a surrogate, yeah, or a substitute, or a placeholder for another object to control access to the real object. So a space is being created. So it is also known as ambassador pattern, that is dealing with the distributed objects. You create the spaces, you divide the things in such a way that the proxies can be used any place a real subject is being expected. Likewise, you are, let us say, logging into the system. So your placeholder should be created. Right. For a meeting, if let us say 80 students will be presenting, okay, they will be there for the meeting. You have to create the space for minimum 80 students, and plus 10, it's sufficient. Okay. So at the time when the references to the system that has been done, you will not waste the time in associating these proxies with the system in question. So moving next, that is object structural proxy, providing surrogate to access the another object. Here, one reason for controlling the access is to defer the full cost of its creation and initialization, because proxy is a surrogate. It's not the original, but it is not a clone. But it is not a clone. There is a difference between a clone and a surrogate. A surrogate is only a placeholder. That is, empty chairs are being kept over there, okay, for waiting for the guests who can sit over there. But in case of cloning, you can add up your own kind of an operations and create further up clones which are distinct from each other. Right? That doesn't happen as okay in the static kind of an case, okay, where the chairs are being kept. Here, when say the chairs are being kept, they are of the same time, isn't it? So subjects might change, right? Let us say TYD sits in, then TYE sits in, right? The subject has been changing, right? But the chairs do not change, the placeholders do not change, right? So the structure, if you understand the structure, you understood the proxy pattern. Client class, okay, tries to communicate with the subject. Subject has got the real subject and you have got the proxies. So proxies, they are there in n numbers. So proxies can associate themselves with the real subject, in turn the subject, and then the client class can refer to them. So therefore a client object which is having a subject with it, yeah, and a subject proxy would represent the real subject, and then a real subject will be the correct kind of an entity dealing with the client object. The communication has been happening between whom? The client and the proxies, right? So, moving ahead, document editor has got graphic items which has got the real subject as draw, get, intent, store and load, alright. And image representation and extent has been there. So, image proxy will create the real subject's images with the help of graphic item, providing all of its services to it. So, document editor can invoke the mechanisms and the methods which are being there with the graphic item. So, the types of proxies now, it will be interesting to see these types. The remote proxies, virtual proxies, protection proxies and smart reference proxies. Very simple to understand. You are aware about remote proxies? I hope so. Yes. This is an ambassador to distributed object, which means that they are responsible for encoding the request and forwarding it to the real object. Yeah. Encoding the request and forwarding the request to the real object. We have drawn the sequence diagram. There it has been mentioned that do not let the actor directly communicate with the control object. Let it first speak to the interface object and then the communication will happen. So, moving ahead, the proxy hides the fact from the user that the object is distributed. So, there is the location, what is the transparency, these issues are being hidden when you are using remote proxies. Next is the virtual proxies. They cache the information about the real object so that they only access the object when it is absolutely necessary. So this depends on the necessity. So therefore, expensive objects, which are the expensive objects which consume large amount of memory, access time, and usually the images that we find around, they takes up very big space. So in that case, virtual proxies can be used. Protection proxies, they are being used, okay, for security purpose. It means that the screen users to access the real object or only allow access to a limited public interface. So kernel level proxies, okay, in the operating systems, they provide protected access. Yeah, only administrator level controls can be applied. We have seen three types now up till now. That is beginning with the remote proxies, then virtual proxies, then protection proxies. The last one was smart reference proxy. That is a replacement for a bare pointer, where you don't know the destination, isn't it? So you create a transient representation for a persistent object so that you can make just the reference. You can make just the reference. Nothing is copied, nothing is been kept with the referencing object. Yeah. The object getting referred can only provide the information, but it does not provide to have the write back sequences. Okay. It is copy or write. Okay. It is not been there. Okay. So if it has been existing, a locking before forwarding an access request is a must. So locking happens over there. Okay. So there are the consequences that you can read and understand when you are having the time. Composite pattern we have already seen. This is for to save the cost, right? A dollar sign, you understand there. Yeah. So how the cost can be saved is by forming the composite classes. Compose objects into tree structures to represent the part whole structures. So you have seen the part whole can be represented with the help of aggregation and composition. Aggregation holds up with the light constraints, whereas the composition goes up with holding tight constraints. That is, all of the parts should be present to form the whole. Alright. So let us take up the intent, compose objects into tree structures, and composite lets client treat individual objects and compositions of the objects uniformly. So what does that mean? Let us take up the example. Okay, composite objects have been there. The first composition, okay, right? Graphics space has been created. Okay, two circles have been drawn. Then multiple composite objects like this, they formulate the shape. Again a composite has been formed. Okay, so a full space has been formed. Let's take up another example. A client has been accessing, okay, to the component. The component is the leaf component or the composite component. The composite component can consist of multiple components all together. Just mark the notation over there. It's a diamond, okay, indicating the part whole relationship. Okay, so graphics, primitive or picture, user defined or composite. We can have user defined data or you can have iterator. So the component is been formulated, okay, it's been used to formulate the picture, where the picture may consist of rectangles, text, lines, circles, ellipses, or simply shapes which can be drawn or which can be removed by applying the iterator function, right, for n number of times where n is finite. So this is just the textual elaboration here of the composite patterns. Okay, and the major advantage is it simplifies the client code because you have to only access to the component, right, and then the composite will be made available. Decorator, okay, decorator it attaches the additional responsibility to an object dynamically. So how it assigns the responsibilities like this, okay, dynamically, right? So no static assignment is there here. So you have got uh, example here, a border decorator. is having the scroll decorator and can have the text view. So three separate kind of an representation. You draw a border, you go forward for the grid formulation, and within that you can write down certain text, right? Decorator. So a visual component takes up text view or the decorator view. Decorator view now adds up the responsibility. Just see to it, scroll decorator and border decorator, okay, they are having additional functionality from draw. Scroll to and draw border, okay, these are in the separate kind of an, responsibilities which are been dynamically added. If border decorator is been selected, that is filling up a shape and what is it? The next thing is the coloring of the outer area, right? Filling up the shape and covering up the outer area, right? So there is another example. Just see to it that a component which is an abstract component can have concrete component. A decorator can have concrete decorator A, B, C, D, and you can have operation invocation from decorator, but you can have added state or added behavior. What you can add to the object is only state or behavior, because object is seen as object is equal to state plus behavior. So this is just about the participant. Pocket now, it's interesting. Provide a unified interface set of interfaces in a subsystem. It gives higher level interface that makes up subsystem easier to use. Now, just see to it that to crush down the complexities or to have provisioning of simple interface to a complex subsystem, you are having the decomposition structure. So, the original structure looks like a mesh, right? Unorganized. And the client classes, okay, externally can now visualize with the system classes. Now just see the arrangement. Here, the client classes were been directly accessing. Okay, now here the access has been made through facade, right? Now this hierarchy can be also organized with the help of facade, right? Another facade. There could be facade to facade communication. Now the example of this you must have seen. Okay, one interesting example in common sense to understand well the facade is the 15th August and the 26th January celebrations, right? The students, that is the CRs, are being, okay, just reverse out here, reverse out the channels. These are the CRs, because and these are the divisions, okay, branch-wise divisions, they have been standing up. The CR has been heading around, class representative, and he's been assigned with the class teacher, right, who usually is taking the attendance, right. Now, after the national anthem and speech by Honorable Director Sir, you try to distribute the sweets, okay, everybody has been waiting around for the sweets. Now, if this thing is not being structured, if the students are crossing the lanes, okay, one student might get two pieces of, the sweets, right? Yeah, so every student, the students of our institute are very much sensible. So they take only one piece, right? Because they have been standing in the hierarchy, right? This is the next level hierarchy I am talking about. Facade is the distribution point, right? Our canteen, isn't it? Is the distribution point. From there the CR collects, comes over here. There is a hierarchy over here, right? Spanning here in every order and direction. And the CR distributes the sweets to one particular class. TYDCR distributes to TYD. Now, if an TYC student comes in, okay, by breaking in the lane and takes up the switch from TYDCR, what the TYDCR should do? Ideally, the TYDCR should say no, right? But can he say, because we are human beings, we are not saying no to anybody, right? But ideally, in the computation systems, accesses like this are being denied. Now, what about the other things? Okay, I do not wish to comment, but there are other entities. For them, there is another lane, and they communicate with the CR. They break the lane, and they do not take one piece. They take 5-6 pieces, right? I mean the sweets, right? One in their hand, two in their mouth, and five in their pocket again. Okay, 10 pieces like that. So you may laugh at my example, isn't it? But Fakad tells you organize the subsystems in such a way that you can easily maintain the hierarchies from outside as well as inside. So multi-level Fakad also can be used. Not much of commenting about this multi-level Fakad has been done, okay, in the literature. So a compiler, now just try to see to it. Compiler, how the Fakad works around. Compiler subsystem classes, scanner, parser, okay, the tokenizing, symbolizing, program node builder, and then the statement node, expression node, okay, multiple expression nodes will be coming in. Then the code generator, the bytecode system, and the stream. Okay, so this is one way to see the hierarchy. Another way is this way, that is in the subsystem classes also you can have the distribution mechanism through the Fakad here, and this is the next thing, flyweight. These are called as the little objects that you know, little objects. Yeah. About little objects, one thing I must say that they have got limited range of services and responsibilities. Limited range of services and responsibilities. So therefore, they use sharing. They use sharing to support large number of small objects efficiently. So multiple times they come in and go outside of the memory, right? So the flyweight pattern is being used when the application uses large number of objects, like the web applications, which are being heavily used, right? Storage costs are high, isn't it? It's a server level bulky system, right? So sheer quantity of the objects, okay, is coming in there. Most object state can be made extrinsic than remaining intrinsic. That is, publication of object state is been happening. Likewise, with WhatsApp, you can see that who is typing down the text on a particular group. Okay, so the state is been made extrinsic, that is been visible to everybody. Many groups of objects can be replaced, and then this is the story which tells you about flyweight. Small, tiny kind of an story. OO editors, they use objects to represent embedded elements like tables and figures. That is object characters. You can have the row objects and column objects. So unique distinctions of row and column objects. For that you can adapt one strategy, and you can create the tiny object only to hold particular character set or a string even, which is again having limitation, right? Now here, what is the spelling looks like? Apparent, right? If you see row wise reading, the word that can be spelled is apparent. Well, so the columns can have multiple rows, so you can form any kind of an string which is having some kind of an meaning, right? The prime characters can be identified, and from the characters set of 26 you can formulate a word, right? Apparent, where it has been going, just say to it A, then double time P references has been made, then again an A, then to R, then to E, then to N, then to T. Now, one of the comparative examples that you can see that as you type down, Google indicates some word, okay, to you, right, which you may tentatively use, okay. This is there as a feature in email composition also, right, email composition also. So flybits are been coming over there, right? Because if you don't want a word, okay, hard, okay, then that you want an harsh, but HAR remains the same. So the dominating word hard will be picked up first, okay. Then if you will be using HAR, then and typing down an S, then the system is 200% sure that the next word to be formed is harsh. So intelligence can be brought up with the help of flybit. Okay, this is the way to use the flybit. Right. Now the example again, flybit factory tries to access the flybit which has got concrete flybits. Some things are being shared, extending states, and something is unshared. That is, all states are not being shared with the client. So another example, right? And then participants and collaborations. Common properties between the adapters and bridge. One is working around on the interface that suits the client. Another one is decoupling the abstraction from implementation. Both have class and object forms. Both use multiple inheritance. Right? And both promote flexibility. And they forward requests from object to an interface on their own. Adapter and bridge, similarly, the differences is just one difference we will take. Adapter makes two existing interfaces, and Packard, it defines a new interface work together, that is uniform interface. Now about the adapter and bridge, focus is on resolving the incompatibilities between two existing interfaces, but in case of bridge, focus is on bridging an abstraction and its potentially numerous implementation. Numerous means finite but large in number. So stable interface has to be there, okay. They don't focus on how the interfaces are being implemented in case of adapter. Yeah, because the job assignment is different, right? So everything is been compared, okay. Difference between composite and decorator. Different intents are been there, right? And that marks up the end of the session. To summarize the session, I have told you the 23 patterns into the short keywords for creational ABFPS, that is abstract factory, then builder, factory method, prototype, and singleton. In case of structural, we are using ABCD F square P, that is adapter, bridge, composite, decorator, flybit, Packard, and proxy. And for the behavioral, we use CMOS TV. that is chain of responsibility, command, then memento, mediator, observer, state, strategy, template, and visitor. That marks the end of the session.